Hello everybody! Well, yesterday I played and reviewed the game called Dragon Feast VR Kung Fu, and in this video I'm going to share some insights about the game, something more in depth. This is also good for VR developers. I'm just going to share my opinion as a VR user, so it might be useful for you as well. So, in general, if you saw my review on the main channel, Spooky Fairy, you can see that I really enjoy playing the game. Just so you know, it's not easy to actually nail a fighting game correctly. Just so you know, in general, for me, playing in first person where there's lots of close combat interaction can be annoying. The reason for that is because, well, in general, we enjoy keeping things a bit further away from us in, kind of in the field of view, so we can see what happened. And usually we are not kind of used to things getting close to us in the private space. So basically, and in general, in gaming, when you play in first person, especially in melee combat, you know that it can be frustrating when you lose tracking, of the character. Sometimes you are too close, and many people complain that, you just can't really follow what's happening because if the other character is very close to you, you just can't see actually what's going on. Now, of course, in third person, it's not a problem. You can clearly see what's happening. And this is why I think why many prefer third person perspective in some games than first person. So why this game actually turned out to be good? Well, three main things that actually make it more accessible. First of all, you can dash, so you can quickly move out of, if you're very close, move a bit back. The second, it supports the ability to lean your head or body, and this will result in your character to moving to different directions. And also the regular movement is pretty fast. So basically you can reposition just in case the character is close to you and you kind of, or maybe, you can't actually see it because it's very, very close and you lose sight of its location. You can quickly reposition. Now there's also a fourth thing, which is actually related to, well, this is native because that's how they designed the game, and this is kind of fits the pace of a human fight, is the pace of the game. So basically you won't see kind of a crazy move. If it were more kind of a crazy arcadey with people flying, it would be different. But here you can see it's kind of a regular fight where it's relatively slow pace. So you won't see like a character just zipping out of the screen and you need to again find it, in first person. That can be annoying. So again, those things make the combat very manageable, accessible in VR. Yeah, just keep in mind that this video is not really representative, of course, of the experience in VR. We have large field of view. You can also see if you just look a bit to the right what's happening in the bottom, the top. So this video is not a true representative of the experience, but again, based on what I'm saying to you right now and what you see in the video, you can understand actually what I'm referring to. Now, one of the most important things for this type of game is having kind of more tactile feeling, where you feel that we're really hitting something. Of course, with the touch controllers, with the conventional VR controllers, we only have vibration that we can use, and of course the sound effects in the game, where it can actually give us the feeling that you're actually hitting something. This is very important, of course, for the consumer level hardware, but we want to have some kind of force feedback, something that really makes it feel like you're hitting something. This is great. I'm not talking hitting your real wall in your room. I'm talking about really feeling this kind of force feedback when you hit something, like in real life. You hit something, you feel it in your hand. This will increase the immersion times fold and make this type of games so much more fun than they actually are. So this is, by the way, very important to have strong kind of punchy sound in this case. This is what the developer actually done. So when you hear this sound, it's kind of register like you're really hitting something. So the sound is very, very important here. And other than that, of course, with virtual controllers, this will enhance the experience, but that's what we have now, especially with the Oculus touch controllers. So that's the best the developer could have done in this case. Now, I think in general that people who play melee in this type of game, if you want to keep distance from the opponent a bit extra, of course, games, for example, like when you fight with a katana sword or and melee weapons, that's why they are kind of a more accessible in a way, because you keep more distance. Again, because your hand can be as long, as it can be. Although developers can do something like extending the hand in a way, virtually in the game, to make you kind of hands a bit further away, so they can put the character. So if the character is a bit further away, it's still kind of you can hit it compared to real life. But this is why when you play with melee, it just becomes so satisfying, because you have the extra reach that you can use. The characters are not too close to you. And again, with all the other things that I mentioned, it can be a really great and fun gameplay experience. This is personally why I like playing with melee weapons in VR. And this is why many VR games out there, they do actually have this kind of extension from your hand. Even Beat Saber, it's a good example. You feel like, it's not... Now, of course, it doesn't have to be melee combat, just objects coming towards your view, because again, you can just block your view and it's very annoying. It's just somebody just put a hand in front of your face, right? It's annoying when somebody does that. Well, same in the game. So you want to be able to interact with objects coming towards you, whatever the game is, to be able to kind of make object not really come and block your field of view, basically. Now, in many games, movement is very important to implement it correctly. In this case, for example, why I enjoy the head leaning, because it was very accurate. And I was surprised how accurate it actually was. And if you use the stick for turning around and you turn in angles, by the way, what you see here, I don't like when you just get into a third-person perspective, but you can disable it in the game. So movement. So basically, when you move your character, if you kind of turn with 40 degrees, 45 degrees angles on the start, 30 degrees, it's annoying. It doesn't feel natural, and this is something that, of course, many games implemented. But if you really want to give users great experience, give them the option to choose what they are more convenient with. Some might choose that. Some others would just choose the head leaning. Keep in mind that the head leaning is experimental in this case of the game, but I found it to actually work pretty well. Basically, we can even play with the sensitivity, and the developer actually implemented very, very well. So when I just move my body, lean my body from side to side, it just felt really, really good, when playing, more natural. Of course, my body just stands still. And it's actually good if you play this seated. So in terms of accessibility, if you want to play it seated, it's very convenient. You just lean yourself a bit to the back, to the right, to the left, and your character just moves. Again, the goal is to make things kind of more as realistic as possible, although players won't be able to move in the 3D space. You can do that, and you can play it room scale, by the way, and it is an option to do. But this is something, of course, that many players, this is not a great option for them, because you need big space. And again, giving the option to players is a great thing. So room scale, free movement with their own body. Something like the head leaning, it's very, very good idea. Actually, first time I think I actually seeing something like that. And of course, using the sticks. So again, giving options to the user is very important. Let them decide and it's very important to give them fine-tuning setup options so they can really adjust this. Because if it's a game they really enjoy playing, they don't mind spending even, just minutes just fine-tuning everything. So the game just feels great for them based on the headset they're actually using. Now, another thing in this game, that when you unlock a character, for example, I unlock a character with a kind of a big hat, and basically it blocks the field of view. And of course, with future VR headset, the field of view will increase. But of course, modern headset, consumer headset, it's kind of a limited, something to keep in mind. So when I had this hat, it actually blocked like 20% of the field of view. And it was annoying, but the developer was smart to actually have an option to actually disable it. So this is very important, because once you try it, you can see that, well, it can be quite annoying. Although if you wear some hat like that, it will do the same. But basically, when you consider the fact that you're already playing with a headset, which generally speaking, it feels like you're actually wearing like a diving mask. So think about diving mask, and you put this hat that blocks the field of view in your head, and the limited field of view of the headset. It can lead to not, bad experience. So overall, it's nice having this option available. It's important to notify the users that this option is available. So if they want to hide it, they have the option to do so. Now in this game, I didn't have the notification for do it. I need to dive into the menu because it was just a bit unbearable for me. And then I found it. It's worth kind of just mentioning users that this option is available. Now I do remember playing a shooter game. Again, it was a shooter game, so basically I can shoot somebody from far. And the problem with that game that enemies just came so fast towards you. You're actually standing in the middle, enemy can come from all directions, kind of 360 shooter, and then you need to protect yourself, not getting hit. First of all, it's very annoying because I always need to turn around and watch my, my back or sides. And also they came so close to me. Anyway, it turned out to be a very, very bad experience. I played it like a few minutes and then I stopped. So this kind of shows me that even when you design a game that is a shooter, when you can actually shoot enemies from range, you need to kind of make sure that you design it well so it actually don't take things into extreme that cause players to just spend more time orienting themselves and and also prevent many things to actually blocking their field of view, and it can be a mess. Anyway, these things are very, very important, and some developers actually implement it wrong, and even in shooter games, it doesn't have to be just a melee game. Now, in this case, because it's melee combat, it would be great to actually have more emphasis on the facial animations. Basically, in regular games where enemies are a bit far, you don't really care. But in melee combat, you pay attention to it, and then the combat becomes more personal, especially if you have kind of a voice. And in this game, the developer implemented breathing, and of course the animation looks really, really smooth, but the facial animations were lacking. So basically, you see hands moving, and it's beautiful, and then you see the face, and it's like somebody just froze them. And anyway, it's important to do this, especially when characters get very, very close to the user. It just makes things much more personal. So as more realistic you make it, the more immersive the game will be to the user. Having said that, in this case, you kind of look more on the hands rather than the face of the user. So still, because the animation is so slick and smooth and realistic, it's actually kind of compensate for that. And overall, again, as I mentioned, it was a great experience. Now, when I played the game, I personally wanted to have kind of a nunchuck, in my hand and use it, but there's no option for that. This is a pure melee combat. And although I wanted maybe something like that, because I really want to play a nunchuck and just fight another, because I just love the weapon. It just feels great. I remember as a child actually toying around with it. It's just so satisfying. So basically having kind of a nunchuck combat can be really, really satisfying. It's something that I just mentioned, But again, this is just pure melee combat. Now, the other thing is that was a bit missing for me, but in some ways, I actually was happy that it stayed like that, is that sometimes you want kind of more arcadey stuff. So there are cool visual effects and slow motion stuff, but you really want something like maybe your hands can glow and you can deal damage. Something a bit more, not realistic, but in a way, thinking about it the second time, I actually really like that it's like that, kind of a mimic kind of a more realistic experience, but just embedding a bit, of the features to make it more arcadey and fun for users. Now, regarding text, this is something that's, I've seen many developers implemented this in a way that is very, very annoying. When you see, the text kind of flying in the air, they try to position it so we can actually see it. So usually, for example, you can put it just relative to your character, maybe if you deal damage relatively to your opponent. And sometimes it's just implemented, for example, if you deal damage, you can hit your character and it just goes from there, from that particular location, and it's just relative to the location where you actually hit, and it won't actually appear. Here you can see the text just going all over the place, and it's very, very annoying to me. It actually happens. So basically, personally, I would prefer something like if I hit something, for example, if I want to see damage, it's better for me to kind of see it where it actually happened, because this is where I'm looking at, and make it kind of a brief, but not stay relatively, of course, to the character, because then when the character moves, I just want to kind of get quick notification about it when it's actually located, when I do hit, when I'm actually looking at, but then be quickly gone. I don't want to be stay a long time in the scene. Now, regarding the design of the game, I can share with you something. So basically, as you can see here, this has a very large field of view. So basically, everything is sharp when you can see it. Now, I think that if there was an option to actually, when you look at things, when you focus on a character, but this is not possible here, to have other areas kind of appear more blurry. Same in real life, right? If you focus on something, you see other things a bit blurry and not sharp. So this is something that can be cool, but for that we need some eye tracking, so you can actually track when the user is looking at, align it with the objects, and just make the field of view, or kind of the shadow depth of field change based on where you're looking at or focusing at. And now, of course, this also can help increase performance, by the way, and again, something to make it more kind of the real world experience can be nice. But missing like everything like super sharp. And by the way, in some games I actually prefer having some things a bit blurry in the background, because it kind of bring the focus. It's kind of creating a vignette in a way. When you kind of blur things a bit, maybe create kind of a more foggy atmosphere, when applicable. So actually the focus is actually on the arena. I remember, for example, being in Japan, and I was in an area, it was in Tokyo, where there are some nice shrines, and it was kind of a bit foggy and just beautiful. And suddenly all the other, all the shrines just popping up, because kind of the background is a bit blurry, and it was really beautiful, and kind of made me think about why in a game, when things are a bit more blurry, and you, for example, in this case, what you see here, the arena, and around it will be kind of sharp, and the areas around it will be kind of a bit more foggy. So we have more emphasis, not totally, but just a bit. So there's more emphasis and less destruction elements in the scene. I also had a thought about this, of course this is not here, but in this superhero type of melee combat, where you can really hit enemies and just they're gonna fly back, and if they hit a tree, they're gonna break it, or if there's a wall, they're gonna break it, something like that. Makes you think about how a melee game would be like that, with kind of a superhero stuff. And when I thought about it, I thought, oh, actually this can be really cool. Just an idea, if you are a developer and want to make something really awesome, but just make sure that enemies are not flying too far away and you need to run after them. Kind of a smaller arena with some really cool effects when enemies just flying and hit something, or maybe you do an uppercut and you just fly in the air, something like that. That can be really cool. I'm just sharing a thought. And by the way, I also like spellcasting in this type of melee combat, range combat. It's very satisfying. Although some of the ones that I tried, the controls are a bit complicated, especially the one that ask you to draw things. I don't know. It's just I don't have the patience for that. And so basically, keeping the controls pretty simple is important as much as you can. Even here, when I get to do the it's kind of a ult ability, ultimate ability, was kind of annoying, just putting the hands in a certain situation. I didn't like it. When I do combat, I didn't even think about it, and I just forgot about it. Maybe something that you need to put your hand in one way and the other one in this way, and maybe if it was something that is more easier to understand, I would probably use it, but it's just... Anyway, in this, right now you can actually see that I can actually kick, which is really nice. By the way, the thing is that the game does support room scale, and if you have the HTC Vive with trackers, you can actually kick with your own foot, and it will actually be presented in the game as a kick. So this is really good. But if I want to kick, of course, without it, I just need to press a button, which actually worked nice again, but definitely full body tracking in a melee combat is the way to go. However, it's important to keep in mind that you need space, right? Usually when I play, I don't have too much space. But again, giving users the option to have this is great, especially melee combat. Some players are going to have a blast just knowing they can actually kick with their legs and hit somebody. It's just, again, everything that kind of replicate the real thing, and your body feels like your movement, the things, interaction, you feel that they are replicated correctly. Of course, talking about body movements in the game, it will significantly increase immersion. The sense of presence will be higher, and basically you feel like you're right there inside the game. Now, because you are very sensitive to that as a human, right? You use it all the time in your life, right? Moving around, using your hands. This is why every single blips that doesn't fit in, users are going to feel it. So players are going to feel it. So it's very important to nail those things correctly. Because again, every single thing that doesn't really fit well in terms of the movement, user will feel kind of, it's just going to break, first of all, the immersion, and it's just going to feel off, and we just take players out of the game for the split of a second. And if it happens a lot of time, well, it ruins the experience basically. Now, of course, if you want this in melee combat, having kind of a VR wearable where you can actually feel when an enemy hits you in a certain location, that would be crazy. That would be crazy. From what I've seen, the game doesn't support it. But again, if you really want to take things to the next level, for those minority of players who do actually have it, this can really be fun. Again, this is just an extra, maybe an update, but it can be really fun. Just when you get hit, you can actually feel when the enemy hits you. And the problem with this game is that I don't know when enemy hits me. It just do like this with a hand and I get hit. I know I get hit, but because I see a visual, kind of a bleeding thing on the screen. But other than that, I have no idea, and I'm losing health. So this is very, very important for melee combat. It's super, super important because then you know where to actually block, because the opponent is very close to you, right? And you see lots of hands move, and you have no idea how to block. So if you know where the enemy actually hits you, because you're going to feel it, your hands automatically is going to be even kind of a very reflexive movement. You're just going to go and block it, this area, right? What you probably do in real life. So yeah, something that can be very amazing. Well, it's not happening in this game. Maybe it will happen. I don't know if the developer decide to take it to the next level and support it. And just so you know, there are quite a few of haptic and force feedback wearable devices that are designed for VR, and those who actually have it are probably having a blast. Again, all was designed to make things as realistic as possible for players, so things that actually happen in real life, users can actually feel them. So this tactile thing is very important, but again, obviously not many players are actually using it, so developers don't really put the time and effort to actually implement it in their games that actually can support it. Not support it, just it actually could be a good fit for it. Regarding this one, what you can see on the screen, the developer actually did a good thing. How do you actually mimic force, right? It's very easy, right? If your user moves his hand slowly, the force will be lower. If you're moving faster and do stronger strike, like in real life. So this was implemented in this game, and this is good. So basically, if I just hit something, the game say, right, it's too weak, right? If I do a fast punch, and you can measure it because you can measure the distance between the starting position of the controller to the actually, when it actually stops, you can measure the distance and per time frame, and you can see actually how far it actually go in the time frame, and it's if a strong hit or a weak hit. And of course you can apply it, so if it's like a stone, you need to do a faster one. If it's something very small, maybe a small kind of a pathing transition of your hand can be enough to actually break it. Yeah, so just a few things, that I thought about when playing this game, and I wanted to create a video and talk about it kind of more a bit in depth. Probably the other things that are a bit missed here and there, of course. But overall, in general, I think the developer did an amazing job with this game, kind of making sure that some of those things that I actually mentioned here, I actually addressed in the game. Not addressed. They don't actually listen to me. I'm saying that the things that I mentioned here, and I want you to see in a melee combat game, are actually implemented very well in this game. And this is why I really enjoy playing it. But of course, there are ways to take it to the next level. But again, some of the things are just not applicable, and both in terms probably of budget, to just invest time and effort to very, very niche area, and some things are just not supported by the headset itself, by the hardware. So this is it. I hope you enjoyed this one. Again, just sharing from time to time, I'm going to share my insight as a player. So developers can just listen to what I have to say about the game. And again, if I have anything special to say, I'm going to share it in a video. Again, I don't have a full technical knowledge of things. I just share, based on my limited knowledge. But hopefully it will be nice and helpful for developers to make better VR games. I hope you enjoyed this one. Consider leaving a like and subscribe. See you soon. Cheers.